it's a deeper level of trust, which I refer to as basic trust. See, it's trust with a capital T. Now, some people call it, universal trust, trust in the universe, trust in God, trust in whatever that is. But that's a level of trust that can bring peace and a settling that nothing else can.
Welcome back to The Vital Point, and another episode rooted in breath, being, and deep work. If you've been following the show, you know we're crafting a space for not just insight, but integration, turning inwards to connect with your own inner wisdom. My guest today is Byron Metcalf, drummer, percussionist, recording artist, and record producer. He's also a transpersonal guide and educator, shamanic practitioner, researcher, and teacher. He holds a PhD in transpersonal psychology, a master's degree in counseling psychology, and is a certified graduate of Groff transpersonal training. He's trained, studied, and worked with shamans, healers, and psychospiritual teachers from many parts of the world, including Stan Groff, Jack Kornfield, John Davis, PhD, Jose and Lena Stevens, Sandra Ingerman, Don Americo Yabar, and Jose Campos. For over 2 decades, Byron has been intensely involved in consciousness research and spiritual development, specializing in the transformative potential of alternative states of consciousness. As a drummer, percussionist, and recording engineer, Byron produces music for deep inner exploration, breathwork, shamanic journey work, body-oriented therapies, various meditation practices, and the healing arts. Byron is a prolific musician. In fact, since the time that we recorded this podcast together, he's released 2 full projects, including Spiral Exchange, which just came out this week and is fantastic. I'm really enjoying listening to it. There's several songs of his that we linked on the show page. These are songs that we talked about during the podcast, but he has quite an extensive catalog. So if you want to dive in, you really just can't go wrong picking one and dropping into a meditative state. If you've done breathwork with me, you've definitely heard Byron's music before. So it was great to be able to talk to him about some of my favorite songs that I use repeatedly in breathwork and my own journey work. To be honest, I've only begun to scratch the surface on his whole body of work. There's a few albums that I'm quite fond of, and a few more that I'm still waiting to discover. But the new stuff is really great, especially Spiral Exchange. Before we dive in, I want to invite you to join our private community on School. It's a space where we go deeper into these conversations, especially around breathwork, inner exploration, and learning to trust the intelligence of your own direct experience. If you're looking to connect with others who are practicing, integrating, and living this work, come join us on School, skool.com/Blue Magic Alchemy. You can also find the link in the show notes. Now take a deep breath. Let's dive in. All right. I'm here with one of my favorite musicians, Byron Metcalf. Welcome to the Vital Point podcast.
Hey, Jonathan, thanks for the invite. Yeah, it's great to be with you.
Yeah, the music and music specifically for working in expanded states of consciousness is something that we haven't talked about on the podcast too much, but it's something that I feel so passionately about that I'm really excited to continue to bring it more into the fold of the topics that we're bringing up as far as people and their own evolution and their own spiritual work, or working in these integrative spaces. So I really, really appreciate you being here.
Great, great. Well, this is mine. I'm just as passionate as you are, maybe even more, because I've been doing it long. I've been doing it longer, so yeah.
Yeah. How did you first get involved in being a musician?
Oh, it's just being a musician. Geez, I mean, we're going way, 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 way back. So my father was a record collector. He wasn't a musician, but he loved all kinds of music. So I grew up in a household of music, and I got turned on to jazz drumming or jazz and big band orchestra kind of stuff. That was my first love, and that got me into drumming. Gene Krupa, Louis Bellson, Buddy Rich, those old the pioneers of bringing drums to the foreground, more out front and stuff. So I was 15. I started playing professionally when I was 15, just self-taught, and in Phoenix, Arizona. And so it just, lots of lucky breaks and connections and good karma, I guess. I don't know. But it's been quite a ride, through popular music, country music, Nashville stuff, and LA recording studio stuff, and all of that, and then transitioning into what I do now and have been doing for, almost 3 decades. So.
Yeah. And that's the part that I'm really, really curious about. So how did that begin? Like, did you know about like holotropic breath work
No,
before you started making music for this? Like, which came
no,
first?
that's great. Great question. So I had gotten out of the music business. It's very successful, and made, it was wonderful. And pretty much I got done everything that I could imagine doing in the music business, except being a rock star or something, and making millions of dollars. That didn't happen. But for, you know, for a self-taught drummer, pretty damn good. And so uh, I quit. I got soul bored, and I went. That's when in mid 30s, and went back to school. Uh, that's when I started my formal education, and was interested in psychology. I've been doing my own therapy and stuff. I said, well, I want to know more about this. Like a lot of people do that, and so I wasn't in music at all at that time, and just by happenstance. I got to go to an in-service training. It was a weekend workshop with a guy named Stanislav Grof, his wife then, Christina Grof, and Jacqueline Small. And so this is in Texas, and I'd never heard of them. And what the heck? What's holotropic? And it was
Right.
just a training thing that I had this wonderful opportunity to attend. Well, it changed my life, the breathwork experience, and Stan talking about introduction to transpersonal psychology that early in my life was just, it's just incredible. And so that's how I started thinking about music and bringing it into the healing arts in some way. And of course, the breathworks is a big way to do that. But I got into Stan's training, Groff transpersonal training, early on. I was in the second group to certified in '89,
Wow.
and so in the training, it's it's at least 2 years minimum. It's like a master's degree kind of. So, but it
Yeah.
can be longer than that. There's a shamanism module, and so I was introduced to shamanism, and I said, wow, this is something that I have the skill set that I can bring in drumming and the rattles of percussion, different percussions and sounds into my healing practice. I was already in private practice by that time, and
Mm.
working with men's groups and stuff. So it was just a natural kind of transition into that. So that's a very quick story. I'm going through it really quick for you here. So it got me into thinking about doing my own breathwork music. So yeah, so um, yeah, I don't know what that ding was, but anyway, did you hear a sound? I'm in my studio, so when some weird sound happens, I look around and say, "Who's around here?" So
Who's banging on your drum?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So anyway, that's
Yeah.
that's the real short story about that, and it just evolved into what I do now. I've got a huge body of work and lots of albums, and working with incredible collaborators, and so
Yeah, you really do have a big body of work, and there's so much music to choose from. And for me, I find it to be so refreshing in a way, because
mm-hmm.
oftentimes when I'm looking for music for breath work, it's not designed for being in an expanded state. Maybe it has an evocative quality,
Mm-hmm.
or we're pulling in some sort of,
Sure.
ethnic tribal music that,
Mm-hmm.
is traditional or something like that. But it's not you're sort of repurposing it.
Sure.
Whereas
Yeah.
what I appreciate about your work is it's already there. It's like you designed it with that intention
Mm-hmm.
of being able to access these other states, and to be able to drop in and connect to that energy. And so it's so great lends itself so well to that purpose.
Yeah. Well, that is my intention, when I create the music now, regardless of what the inspiration for a track or an album might be, it's always about how does it support the expanded states? How does it help induce expanded states or altered states or holotropic states? There's all kinds of terms for that. But and on the having done this for so long, I kind of know what works. And if it works for me in the studio when I'm mixing and I'm putting it together, then I know it's going to work for others. And we can go deeper into what that's about if you like. But that is the intention of the music period, is to support people's just how best to say this in I guess finding out or experiencing more of who they truly are through music and sound and all of that.
Yeah, and music is such an important part of that.
Yeah. I mean, it always has been. I mean, percussion and sound, percussion, voice, beating on a log or some sticks together, vocalizing was always that was the early, some hitting some rocks together. Just the repetition of that changes brainwave states. These indigenous societies and cultures, they just knew that, and so that's where all that comes from. And that's why in my music, there's so much repetition of layered percussion and different kinds of rhythmic, polyrhythms and that kind of thing. It's not just a moving from 2 to 8 bars or 16 bars. I let that stuff extend and build because you need time for the brain to entrain, and that's going to just absolutely and naturally bring the listener into first from a beta to an alpha, and then hopefully a theta state, which is the deeper trance state, of course.
Yeah, so no, I love it. And you mentioned kind of going a little bit deeper into your process in the studio. Like how do you know that it works? What's that process like for you?
Well, I mean, it touches me. I've done a lot of my own inner work, of course, a lot of exploration with breathwork and different experiential therapies, and including psychedelics and plants and all of that over the years, and in those experiences, all of them, I've been taught, informed, inspired within those experiences to see, hear, experience, feel in various ways what the music is and how it's working. Like ayahuasca was showing me the just the subtle but very, very clear differences in space and time within the field. And the invitation, I guess I'll say, a challenge or invitation to me was, how do I create that or recreate that or somehow bring that into a 2-track stereo recording? How do I do that? See? And so that I was informed that way and experimented with trying to get close to those experiences and how I was experiencing it in my studio. And that continues to evolve. It's always, I haven't found, okay, here's where I am. I'm always growing, and I'm hoping to grow and stretch and learn more and create more and expand in some way. I mean, that's the nature of reality anyway. It's always unfolding. So the idea is to cooperate with it and flow with it. How do we do that? That's a perennial question. So.
Yeah, you touched on something that reminds me of something that Michael Stone said in the neurodynamic training, which is like when you ask a question, your mind starts to work on it subconsciously, like looking for the answer. Sure. So it almost sounds like by setting your intention on that challenge or that invitation, like you mentioned, you started to work at a deeper level of being able to connect with the answer, and to
Mhm.
be able to bring that that energy into the field, like you said.
Yeah. So I'm gonna tweak that a little bit.
Yeah.
So and as I prefer for myself is to not trying to find an answer to something unless it's a piece of software I'm trying to find out how it works, that kind of thing, or
Uh-huh.
how this particular microphone is going to fit and work on this instrument. That's what I'm talking about here is more about trusting some organic process, see, that's unfolding as part of the field. Yes, and we say I'm creating the music, but it's really coming through me in a certain way. You get what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
so the idea is to flow with that. Yeah, I need to have some structure around it and facilitate it. In psychedelic terms, we call navigate it. See,
Uh-huh.
it's a
Yeah.
journey, and I treat it the same way. So I'm navigating. I'm not controlling it necessarily, although I could if I wanted to in the studio.
Uh-huh.
But so there's this part of the mystery of it unfolding. I don't know how it's going to turn out, even if I have a very, very clear idea of a concept. Unless I'm trying to write out the music, score it, and play it exactly like that, or create it like that, it's going to turn out differently. And that's what I love about doing this kind of music. I'll approach something, it's got its own life, and it's going to unfold in the, as it goes. And what I want to do is be able to trust that process and to help facilitate it, use the skill sets that I have to make that the best it can be. And it's a collaborative thing. You get what I'm saying there in terms
Yeah.
of just, the process itself is collaborative. Yeah, I've collaborators, musicians, and things like that. That's all there too. I'm talking about the what's unfolding in the creative process. And that's what I love about it. That's the mystery, the magic of it, because you don't know what's going to happen. Sometimes it's just not something there's a lot of stuff I just, this is not working, and go to something else. It
Mm.
just hit a wall or a dead end, and I didn't try to force it. Sometimes I will stay with something to see, wait a minute, this is like, if you want to talk about Stan's perinatal stuff, okay, we're going in the birthing process here, and it's difficult and challenging, and I'm really, really going for it.
Yeah.
Other times it's just an easy birth. It's just the magic of it. You don't know what's going to look like. You kind of know, but you just don't. And I love that. That's part of why I keep doing it. I just had my 80th birthday, so you know, you can see and feel the excitement I still have about this stuff.
Yeah.
I go a little slower, you know, and it takes me a while longer to get where I used to, maybe 10 years ago, 5 years ago, but that's okay. That's how it's supposed to be, I think.
Yeah. So trusting that connection with, I guess, what Stan would call the inner intelligence or the
Yeah,
inner
yeah.
healer.
Or
Yeah. Connecting to
inner
something
healing
bigger than,
mechanisms, all the things we talk about there,
yeah.
the resources, they're just there. They're innate in the work that we do. When we're doing therapy and healing work, it's really just, it's moving away and dissolving and healing and clearing that which is in the way of our essential nature that's there anyway. We don't have to go get it anywhere. We need to mature it, of course, and work with it as it comes up and arises. But the healing work is just about getting the stuff out of the way. And we get scars along the way, as Angela Terrian said, we're all members of the Scar Clan, and we got wounds, we got stuff. Some of them pretty profound for some folks, and
Yeah.
some real difficult, issues and things to work with, but work through. But it's all possible. So
Mm. Yeah. I love that. Being able to connect to the field.
hmm.
So besides from doing your own work, because it sounds like that is an important part of this process, how else can people develop that dissolving or help to connect with this field a little bit easier?
Hmm. Repetition. Okay, so what I mean by that is
Yeah.
to get some practices going. I mean, the basic, the bottom line is a minute. Here's something I did many, 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 many years ago when I was doing research in my master's degree and my PhD. What are there any common practices that all the people I admire the most and aspire to be like, you that really inspired me? Is there anything in their spiritual work or what they do in their life that have any common threads? And the one I found was only one I found is that all of them had as part of their life a foundational meditation practice of some kind that was a serious discipline. That was a part of their life, just like brushing your teeth,
Yeah.
meditating. So meditation is pretty much foundational for most people, but it's not the only thing to do. But shamanic journeying, using, I think, for people who are maybe new to the work and things like that, or have difficulty going into expanded states, then things like hemisync, brainwave entrainment technology, those kinds of things can be just, they work. They really work well, and so it trains the brain, and new neural pathways become getting laid down, and I mean, it's just, and keep doing that, and you'll start operating from a different place, and you're going to be informed by a greater field. It's just, but it takes doing. It's not we in the West really want that one-time fix. We want to take that pill or go to that workshop or that weekend thing and get initiated, and then our lives going to be, the ascension model is what I call it. I'm close to Sedona. There's a lot of that over there.
Sure.
And so, I get skeptical of I guess what one of the first things that happens when you're doing spiritual work is your antenna get pretty, they get pretty tuned in pretty good. And as I think as Ram Dass said, first thing that starts happening is your bullshit detector starts getting really, finely tuned,
Yeah.
and because there's a lot of stuff out there that, it's just stay away from. It's not helpful. It's just, they get exploited, and there's a lot of stuff that works, So the commercialization of things is, that's a whole nother, we could do several podcasts on that one. But anyway, so going back to the don't get me started kind of thing, So
No, this is good stuff. Yeah, no, I love it. Yeah, and thank you for mentioning that, like the importance of meditation. I'm not as familiar with the hemisync, although I know that some of your albums have hemisync versions, or use that. Is that something that you add in during the recording process, or what?
No,
what is that about?
it's a great way to recycle usually it's a recycling of the album that's been out already. And hemisync.com, which used to be part of Monroe Institute, Monroe Products, and all of that. I mean, this is a tried and true technology. I mean, very well researched, very sophisticated. These folks really know what they're doing in terms of creating the different mixes and being able to really create states. It's fantastic. And so what they do is they might like one of my albums. That's how it got started, the original Shaman's Heart. And then I'll send them the master, and then they will tweak it a little bit to put these hemisync tones, mixes back into it. So it's like adding an instrument, but you don't really hear it. And the older ones you can hear something sometimes. I can anyway. But most people wouldn't be able to hear it unless they compared the hemisync version with the original. So, because the music's exactly the same. But you put the headphones on, and I was shocked the first time I listened. I was kind of doing a QC kind of thing for the master that they created on Shaman's Heart. And so I was journeying. I put the headphones on, and I had to take them off at one point. I said, "Holy, this is incredible!" I really got into a big process, and I was sick and tired of that album. I'd heard it so much, and it had that effect on me. So I said, "This works," And so I've got a lot of my albums with them. They call it their term for it is metamusic, META, metamusic, and they've called it that for a long time. So it's just bringing the music to, and so people can listen to that, and but you got to do it with headphones and listen to the whole thing. You don't just take a track, because the way that the hemisync will go is it just like psychedelics, where there's onset and it starts ramping up slowly, and then it gets in, there's a plateau and a peak, and then it ramps down. And it's important to do all that because the brain is cooperating with this technology, right? The entrainment process. And you don't want to just zap it up into a higher state, from you put it on the middle of the album. It could be just give you a headache, or something. So, but it's great. So I really recommend it, and check it, hemisync.com, and check it out.
Nice. Yeah. Have you done any exploration of, like, I think they call it cymatics, or sort of using more like bodily sensations in sync with the music as well?
No, I know about it, but I haven't explored that personally myself. Yeah.
When I was at Psychedelic Science in 23. I did a demo of like this bed that you lay down on. You had headphones, and it had different vibrations. And they said that, you were able to like use it within Ableton Live to like basically make what you're saying, kind of make your mixes, add this additional element to it. And it seemed to be pretty interesting, but there's so many things out there that you could get into.
Yeah. So find something that works and stay with it.
Yeah. So you touched a little bit on like the kind of trajectory to a breathwork experience, or other psychedelic work. And you also mentioned before we hit record, and this is something I'm really curious about, is that you were able to be mixing music live for Stan and some of the breathwork, holotropic breathwork sessions. So since the holotropic sessions are 3 hours, and I don't know, most of your records are a little bit shorter than that. Could you talk about like how you kind of put things together in that context, or when things are live, what that process is like for you?
Sure. I mean, I would just pull different tracks, I know the music well enough to say, well, okay, track 3 from this particular album might really fit here, or maybe 2 and 3. Sometimes I would create, for those kind of events, I would create sequences. In other words, back then, in those days, I could, create my own CD or either a digital audio tape, and be able to have maybe 20 minutes of 3 or 4 tracks, together. And so it'd be a sequence I could just put on that I knew would fit. But they're different tracks from different albums, different moods, different tempos, different energy, of course. And then I could just choose. I would have a map, but as Stan likes to say, the map's not the territory. See? So I'd let the map play. I mean, and if you have a playlist, you need to let it play. It's probably going to work fine. But, if in that context where my only job is just being able to kind of tune into what's going on in the room and let that inform me. And just, as I like to say now when I'm teaching people about this, is the music actually chooses me. See, I've got some things laid out there, and I'm not thinking about it. It's a sense thing, and it's something I just trust. There's a flow that's happening, that's cooperating with what's going on. So something, as my partner, we do some work together with folks and deep meditation work, and we're talking about this is being orchestrated by the field itself, by some higher, deeper intelligence and that kind of thing. It's mysterious, I mean, some people seem too woo-woo, but we know it works and we trust it fully. And it's about trusting that when a piece of music ends up in my hand, or I choose the music, this particular track, I'm trusting it. See? Yeah. And it's not something I don't think, I think this will fit good here. See, it's not about trying to create anything. It's about trying to support what's there. See, that's the idea. I don't want to put on a piece of music because I think, well, maybe it needs to be this. No, that's me being too involved in it. It's what will support the field. Let it choose me. Now, that's pretty advanced stuff. It's taken me years to be able to learn how to trust that process. But I do. And it's always just fine.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is so resonant to me because I came into all of this work from my experience in the rave scene and with DJing. And even though it's a different setting, to me, what you're talking about is exactly what a DJ does. Like, they're working with the energy, they're working with the field, they're tapping into the collective consciousness of the dance floor in the room. Exactly. And, even now, I still like to go to these experiences. Most of them have been in Denver in the last couple of years, of one DJ that I really like, that, that has 20 to 30 years of experience, and they play for 6 hours straight. So it's totally different. I took a friend of mine that had, never experienced anything like this. And he said, Jonathan, this is so different because every other rave I've been to, it's 6 different DJs playing for 1 hour. Wow. And it's almost, the way that he put it, he said, it's almost like each one of them is trying to fuck you. Like as fast as they can, they got to get it in. They got to, they're just trying to go get it done. Right. Yeah, as opposed to having this unfolding and this space to explore and to like set things up and let it breathe and give you the space and room to go inside. Yeah. Right. Even in the middle of a dance floor, to like have that experience for yourself and, take your time with it, tell a story, work with the energy.
Yeah. That's wonderful to hear, because those are the guys, those are the ones who are facilitating shamanic rituals. Yeah. Those are ceremonies. That's how that's supposed to be, ideally. And there's a few that can do that, because you just, you reference this fellow. Yeah, it's great to hear. They're not all like that. Yeah. Just like therapists or anything else. Some of them really, wow, what happened by just being in their presence,
Yeah.
And so that's great. I love that. Yeah. So it's a
pulling
ritual.
Those
It's a ceremony.
Pulling those sequences of songs together that really work. Yeah. And that's why I get excited about music for breathwork or for working in expanded states, because to me that like it's a different expression of that same idea of just tapping into the flow of energy and how it's working with people and giving them that space to explore and connect, like you're saying, to the field, to something bigger.
What you're talking about is that that overused term that we have is called holding space. Yeah. Creating space and holding space. And the psychedelic nomenclature way back when that was coined, it was set and setting is everything. So you're referring to set and setting. And when that's there, and what I hold the idea around psychedelic work is there's no good or bad trips. There's only safe or unsafe. You get what I'm saying? And that applies to all of this. Any kind of setting or context where we're going inside, and I would say just life itself, ideally. But, when we're doing ceremony and ritual with intention, then, there needs to be safety, holding, and then there's the bring the skill set in. There's this DJ that you were referencing, and then it's magic happens. Right. People, their own inner resources get activated. You trust it. You don't try it. You don't manipulate it. You don't control it. You hold space for it. Keep it safe. Healing happens in that environment. And how the healing happens or what it's about is none of our business. That DJ's their mind. If I'm doing something with somebody, that the result is none of my business really. That's an inner process for somebody. I don't even have to understand it. And that's what I got from Stan early on. So the therapist doesn't need to understand. They just need to be there and support the process. Keep it safe. He says experiential knowledge is more important than facts. I love that.
Yeah. This is such a pleasure for me.
Yeah, it's good honestly, stuff, isn't it? You can tell. I love talking about this stuff. I could do it all forever.
What are some of the aspects from the shamanic work that you bring in, or that are specific to kind of those shamanic traditions that can support what we're talking about?
Say more. So
like for someone that's never done like a shamanic sound journey, for instance, or things like that. Like what are some of the I guess technology, you could say, of the sacred, right? That's something that Stan talked about, specific to the shamanic work.
Well, I mean, it's not it's specific to. I think I'm not sure I would say that there's anything specific to. Maybe there is. Maybe certain traditions will employ specific methods and techniques and that kind of thing and ideas, but the result is the same. I mean, what you're doing is creating. The shaman. This is something I learned a long time. The shaman is a master of placebo, the absolute master of placebo, because placebo is the most healing thing we have. Of course, if we can truly believe it, things change. Because we're not a damn machine here. That mechanistic science thing is just, that the medical model's built around. It's just, we know how limited that is and how incorrect it is as we apply it to the human condition. It's just really just being in tune and in touch in the ways that whatever works, But the shaman was able. Now I'm talking about traditional shamans, here. I'm talking about the real deal. Now I'm a shamanic practitioner. See, so that's different than a shaman. I haven't been initiated in that way. I would never appropriate that kind of terminology for myself. So, but I do shamanic work, and so I employ some of those things, and I know the work because I've done a lot of it. I've worked with some incredible, indigenous healers and teachers, from all over, and so I know what it is. And so specific to it, there's maybe a few instruments and the way they use their voice. And I would say more than anything else is because the traditional shamans are so in touch with the natural world. They're a part of it in a way that we typically aren't in the West. That they're let me go. This is where this is going for me. So what distinguishes the true shaman, one of the most distinguishing characteristics, is that the shaman is able to move back and forth between what we call ordinary and non-ordinary reality at will. At will. They don't really see the altered state and the ordinary state is the way they, let me see it, them trying to get this more articulate here. It'd be, I guess, an analogy for us would be like walking across the street in some way. It's a different house, see, or a different piece of property. Yeah. That's all. You know, it's the same. It's, you know, how right. We treat this stuff is, okay, well, I'm going into an altered state, you know. Right. Well, yeah, it is in the way that we understand it, but not for these folks, see. And so they were able to work with energy and frequencies, you know, in a way that's tangible. You know, I've worked with shamans who move energy in a way that just, it makes our medical model and our psychotherapies, what we understand, just pale in comparison. They can see. I was in an ayahuasca ceremony one time. It was very difficult, and the shaman was working with me and brought a leaf rattle, what's called a shakapa, and stuff around, and I was purging, and it was really hard, and I finally got through it, all this. And later on, through the interpreter, because the guy didn't speak English, you know, through an interpreter, he was telling me what he actually saw, what the visions I had. He was able to see my inner experience and tell it to me afterwards, and then say why he did what he did to help me move through that. I mean, really, that kind of thing. And this is pretty common stuff, you know, that's not a big deal for them. They do it all day, see? You talk about humbling, you know, that puts us in our place in terms of how we relate to the nature of reality and all of that. And this applies to the topic here. It's sound. How do we work with the frequency? See, that's what I was referring to earlier. How do I hear, as I go off to my right here, is the, you know, the mixing station and all of that. And that's where everything starts coming together. You know, where I'm sitting, I'm surrounded by drums and all the instruments and mics and all that. But in the mixing is when I start putting this stuff together and start feeling into the field and the frequencies and what supports what works. See, what's in the way. You see, all the metaphors and analogies are all in there. And I get to work with that. And so this kind of inner work, breath work, or shamanic work, or psychedelic work, whatever it is, helps me to do this in a way that supports others in their own inner work. That's the kind of music I want to create. Music that, a certain kind of music, you know, this is a specific genre, and a limited audience, you know, but it's there to help people. See, that's all. Well, I hope it helps people. It helps me to do it, and so I'm hoping that it supports others once it's out there and available, you know, in whatever format that people want to explore it.
Thank you for saying all that. I wonder, because I'm curious if we could go back a little bit. You said the shaman is the master of working with placebo. Mm-hmm. Could you say more about that? Because I'm really curious about what you mean by that. They're able, just because they're working, see, they're so connected and they can see so much. They're able to, what do I want to say that fits our language here? Okay, I'm just going to say it this way. They're able to convince the person that they're healed. You know, with not only their behavior, what they're doing, but what they're saying. They're convinced. They're absolutely convincing people. There's a belief that's there. The energy field is so strong that it just changes things. That's how energy healers work. You know, they suspend the energy body so that they can get it more harmonized and balanced and right itself before it goes back in. And this stuff is, you know, way beyond what we even. If I was talking to a traditional medical doctor about this stuff,
is their eyes would be glazing over, like what the uh, give me a break, Well,
Right.
okay, go
But then you
experience
have
it.
these
Yeah,
experiences,
yeah, go
and
down.
and then
Yeah,
it's like,
let me.
okay, well, of course, there it is.
I can refer you to somebody down the Amazon, and then come back and let me know what you think.
Right, right.
So, but not everybody's going to get it. That's that kind of work is not in it. It's not a magic bullet. If you're open to it, curious about it, all it's needed is curiosity. So, you know, you can be skeptical. I was skeptical all the time. I'm still skeptical. You know, I've got a I've got a big time skeptic, man. That's good. Some ways. Sometimes it gets in my way too, but that's part of the work.
Yeah, skepticism, but also curiosity and
Yeah,
openness, and I hear a lot of trust as well.
yeah, yeah. Well,
Trust in your own inner kind of compass, right? And
well, yeah,
where it's leading.
exactly. I mean, that's ultimately that's what this is about. Because once we have trust, and I'm so yeah. Let me just go with what you just said there. Trusting in your own inner compass. So there is that kind of trust, but there's an object to the trust there, the inner compass, right? So you're trusting that. Yeah, trust your intuition, trust that, trust the guidance that's there. But what is the guidance? See, what is that? Well, we can't really articulate that. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So ultimately, it's a deeper level of trust, which I refer to as basic trust. See, it's trust with a capital T. Some people call it, universal trust, trust in the universe, trust in God, trust in whatever that is. But that's a level of trust that can bring peace and a settling that nothing else can. See, trusting in my own abilities, that's different. Or trusting in you. See, I wouldn't have done this podcast if I didn't have an inner trust. And this guy's okay. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I checked you out, So, that's the bullshit detector thing. Let me see, because I get a lot of these requests, and so there's resonance. When there's resonance, I trust it. See,
Yeah.
I don't care about the outcome. Well, I do care, but not that much. Hopefully it helps somebody. Hell, if it's just this nice conversation you and I are having, that's enough for me. You get it. So I don't need anything out of it. You get what I'm saying there?
I do.
How this is working. Yeah.
No, so. and I hope that this is resonating to the people listening to it as well, because
me too.
To me, like this is real juicy, good stuff. Like we're touching into we're touching into some real ineffable things. And that's not an easy thing to do.
No, it's not. It's not. And but I mean, at some point I come to what Ramdas says, what else are you going to do? Yeah. I mean, at some level, once, you've opened enough, there's enough opening, enough understanding, knowledge, all of that. But we've got to be careful of the word understanding, because that needs to be with a capital U as well. That's an embodied thing. So the understanding and the reasoning mind, as well. I think it was Brew Joy said, my partner Karen, she says, she heard him say, understanding is the booby prize. So, we're all just so addicted to logic. Steve Roach talked to me, so he called it the cult of logic, And if you listen to his music, you see, that ambient stuff that just, that sometimes has no structure whatsoever. It just moves in the field as it comes through him. I mean, there's no logic to it. It's impossible.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it is one of the things that like I am still working through in my own music, going from that sort of club format where it's like, there's an artistic expression and there's freedom, and yet there's so much of a format. It's like, well, after 16 bars, something's going to change here, and then after another 64, this is going to come in. There's going to be a drop. There's going to be this structure, and moving into more intentional music like you're saying, trying to listen, listening and feeling inspired by your work or by Steve's work and being like, I want to create something like that.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
There's the lack of structure, and just being able to drop into the field is in its own way like a challenge for me.
Yeah.
Just that learning curve.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And the I guess the paradox here, or the juicy irony of it, is that is structure within the non-structure. Yeah. That's when it really is working. That's what I love about being a percussionist and the kind of thing I do. There's structure in there. That's why it works so well with Steve, because it gave him, there was kind of the structure holding there, but it's not song based. Not It changed, as he refers to as the body clock. Whereas when is the body clock? How does that inform this? See, and that's how it changes. But the rhythms, the rhythms and the patterns and all of that, that's the brainwave stuff. The repetition, really, this stuff can. That's why I get probably daily. I get some sort of email message, somebody contacting me and says, I don't understand why I listen to lots of stuff, lots of music and lots of shamanic music or new age music, whatever it is, but your music takes me somewhere that this doesn't. And I love hearing that, but I understand, why that happens, because there's intention in how I put that together. See, and I know for myself what will change me. See, when I say changing, I'm talking about shifting consciousness. When that happens to me in the studio, I know I'm onto it. I know it's working, and so I just need to cooperate with that. And so the end result is something that helps people, who want to go there or want something to support their work, their inner work, the breath work, the shamanic work, just house cleaning, Right. They said, my first album, Helpers, Guides, and Allies, one of the first reports I got was this woman. She was a breath worker, by the way, and that I knew, in the Groff community, way back. What was this, 98? And she said, I have never, ever cleaned house with such joy, enthusiasm, and energy in my life. I put your album on and just turned it up, so cleaned a refrigerator. So, I thought I want to use that as a review, and put that in some marketing or something,
Yeah.
So there's that too. Whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I feel fortunate to, to work with a lot of your music, and it always, it's touching me, and that's why, right, there's this huge library, this huge catalog to choose from. And, every once in a while, I'll just put on a new album that I haven't listened to and just wait. And there'll be one, usually there's at least a couple songs that really speak to me or feel, there's something that I know. Oh, okay. This I can use there, or this will go in this set. Yeah. And then just listening to that, just tapping into that, like you're saying.
Yeah, that's the way when building playlists, like if you're building a playlist for breath work, mapping that out, so what I used to do is just get all kinds of albums. I go to movies and listen, because film scores sometimes are just, they're scored for an emotional journey, and that's what these things are anyway. And so I'd hear something and I said, okay, I'm going to go find that album. Maybe I'd buy a whole album back in the day, buy a CD for 5 minutes worth of music that was just gold, totally. So because it just worked so well in a certain section, and I could weave that into a mix and put together playlists and that kind of stuff. But spend hours and hours and hours auditioning, going through albums and not finding anything. Back then there was no streaming, no Spotify and things like that. It was great. Right. Now you can Shazam. Just, the whole world's there. So, but anyway, it's exciting to do that, because it really informs you. You learn just by doing that, because when you were picking out, oh, there's something that will work. That wasn't something in your head.
Right.
See, you experience that. That's what you want to learn how to trust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've always loved that feeling, even, back in the club DJing days, is like just getting that sense of, I'm listening to a song and I know, oh, this is going to work really good with another song. And I can't tell you why. I just know that it is. And then I can't wait to go home and listen to it and play them together and be like, oh yeah, wow, that's really powerful. That's really incredible.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the opposite can happen too.
Sure.
For me, say, wow, this would be great. And you listen, and, oh boy, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
And maybe that was a problem. I was thinking.
Yeah, and it definitely can happen within sort of the the DJing experience, because you might be cut off, like your field might be in here and you're listening to something and you can hear something else that everybody else can't hear. And then when you bring it into the bigger field, it just doesn't quite jive.
Right. And that's why it's so important to be in tune with the field more than anything else, the larger field. That's what we need to be flowing with, as facilitators, as DJs, as practitioners, or whatever it happens to be.
Definitely, like, one of my favorite tracks that I use a lot for breathwork is I use a lot of the Inner Rhythm Meditation 2 album specifically, but A Steadfast Path is one of my favorites. Yeah,
me too. There was never the title for that came later, and that's usually the case for me. Oftentimes I might have a concept of a album and a working title, but almost always that changes. And the track titles, they inform themselves as they're kind of developing, and they just come. And so the rhythm that happened there that I just happened to stumble onto was the basic, that kind of, it's almost like a walking meditation, a quick step kind of thing, was clay pots, udu, and I had two patterns there working together that just came out. Wow, I love that. And so I built on that, and it just, and then Eric Waller played on it, and Peter Fippen, and had Dashmesh added at the end, handpan, and Eric kind of tweaked that some and processed it some, and we wove that into the ending. But it just felt like this thing. I was just, when I closed my eyes and felt into it, this had this quality of steadfastness without contraction. You get what I'm saying? It was a nice, easy kind of, anyway, it just felt good, and the title worked for me as this, and I can tell you from a personal place, that's what I want in my life. It's a steadfast path, that's the path I want to walk. That's steadfast, not this, The steadfastness is steady. See? Not perfect, but it's steady. Right. And when you listen to that track, there's this loose quality to it. See? There's a softness to it, but it holds space in that way. So I guess that's as I think back on that now. Yeah.
I use it a lot for kind of taking people into, like, transitioning from like a slower, more regulating breath into like a deeper, more active, kind of circular breath. But especially when, like, I do a lot of work in treatment centers. And so a lot of the folks there aren't necessarily ready today for like a full 3-hour holotropic experience, but I'm trying to give them a little taste. And also it's interesting that you're saying that about the title, because I'm always encouraging them in that container to find your own edge and trust yourself, not go too far. Right. Like find that discernment where you're starting to notice a change, but you can pull it back if you need to. Because oftentimes folks that are in that space, they're still learning to
Yeah.
trust themselves. So finding
Yeah.
that steadfastness where they can keep going, they can stay with it, without stumbling too far off in one direction or the other.
Right. Great. That's great. It's reminded me of the early days of biofeedback training, because my partner's she's very involved in that, and the parents of clinical biofeedback, they referred to self-regulation. That was a term that they used back then to be able, to balance your anxiety level and all that kind of stuff. But that applies to what you were just describing, I think.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I'm telling them is like working with that self-regulation, with those somatic resources.
Right.
And,
and it's the breathing is the key to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes, it might be saying something like, if I had a headache and I took an aspirin or a Tylenol, well, I'd expect the headache to go away. You're doing something intentional with your breath. It's going to have some sort of effect. Like you don't have to contract or try to like hold it in, but this is a discovery. You're learning that for yourself. So that's so interesting how the name of the song really fits that. And I love what you shared, that, like it sounds like the titles of songs kind of come later to you just based on what's been created, authentically and in the moment.
Yeah. I can't even think of a time or a situation where I had the title before I started creating it. I might have an inspiration that comes from somewhere or that has a title or something, but I've created. This is, I love, I was a Nashville musician for a long time, the songwriter community and stuff, singer-songwriter stuff, and I love songs, and they can inspire me. And so I listen to a lot of country, the older country stuff, that just mainly because of the songwriters, but the great musicians, the studio players, and I knew some of those. And sometimes I'm inspired just because I like the way that thing feels, and it could be any artist, it doesn't matter. But it's the feeling that I want to bring, the emotion that I want to bring into. Then I say, I might even get that, just rip that thing and play to it in the studio, just play a little bit. And then I just mute whatever that song was, because that's not what I'm doing. And something will come out of that. I'm trying to capture the energy, the feeling, the emotion, whatever it was that inspired me. And if I can get that, then I build from there. It's its own thing, So, but that's just one example where inspiration comes.
Wow. Yeah. Is that similar or different when you're like approaching an album? Like, is there more of a sort of idea when you sit down to like make a record?
Yeah, an album, albums just kind of come together. I mean, sometimes it'd be like if I'm working with a collaborator, like if Steve Roach and I back in the days, okay, we're going to do an album based, and we're this was the original inspiration, maybe something I had or something he had, or an idea both of us kind of resonated with. And then we built from there. So that's one way that we do it. But for me, in my own solo work and personal work, it's just I just create grooves and tracks and the stuff that feels just basic percussion stuff and layering, and those come together and they'll move to another, and then I can kind of hear how things might work together, and it just builds itself.
Yeah.
And informs itself, and all of the titles and ideas, all of that come later. I'm working on a thing right now where I've got all these different musicians contributing, to this. It's going to be a solo project that'll be out in the fall, but it's don't have the title yet. Don't even have track titles yet, but it's coming together in this very interesting way that I don't know yet. See, and but I'm just working on the mixes and the parts, and I've got this throat singer from Finland that I got introduced to. It's just an amazing guy. It's just incredible musician. and first time working with him, and so with the technology now, we can, I'm Eric Wallow in Norway, and the other guy in Slovenia, and then Dashmesh, my digital player friend, he's in Phoenix, so, and we're not here in the studio together. The magic is that I don't know what they're going to contribute. They just send the parts back, and I get to weave those in, or just leave them as is. Wow, that's great. Or manipulate and, do what we do. But I love that process, and everybody has the freedom to just sit in their own studios and just be with what it is, and let inspiration come. We're not hired guns anymore, like studio players. I want you to do this or that.
Right.
This is my idea. Go for it. So that's how I work with these guys.
Nice.
And girls and women. God, Ari Urban, the violin player that was on this Rituals of Passion that we did. God, unbelievable. She's just but she came here to record her parts, and I was just in tears and goosebumps most of the time. It's just, that level of musicianship and inspiration. She just.
Yeah, that's a great record.
Yeah.
I really like that one a lot too. And I'm really digging some of your newer stuff that's been coming out with James Asher. I've got my fingers crossed that there's a whole album of that coming. Well,
we don't know yet. We're just feeling around. That's a totally unique process, and I can tell you that it was James Asher that was one of the primary inspirations in me getting into doing the tribal work back in the day, because we were using his earlier works in breathwork, in the early breathwork stuff, and he contacted me, and it's James Asher, wanted to connect, and God, this is James Asher I've known and loved all my life. And I was really nervous and impressed and just thrilled, And it evolved over time. We're just colleagues, talking about the music business and delivery and all that stuff. But then we said, well, maybe we should do something together. And we were just playing around and trying stuff out, And we're still doing that. So it got more kind of heart-centered, meditative stuff right now than that tribal stuff. And they were really short tracks. I want to do longer tracks, but we're also kind of doing this because he's connected to some film folks and things like that. So they like to audition these shorter things. And so some of it was business-oriented kind of things as opposed to what I typically do on my own album. So.
Yeah, there's been a good contrast because you put out that EP that's very tribal, and then a couple of the singles that have been coming out are more have more heart. Even that Heart Search, it's right in the name, right? Like,
yeah, I love that. Yeah,
yeah.
And there's one coming out in a couple of weeks that is more. It's kind of meditative, really interesting thing. I think you'll like. My parts are very lots of space in there, and he's this great keyboard part. And no percussion. I'm doing the last couple things. I'm the only one doing percussion. He's he's an incredible multi-instrumentalist and composer. So. Yeah.
Well, the last track I'll mention, because I played it yesterday in a breathwork session. I do like a full moon session every month, and it really
a big one. There's a big one.
It really, oh my goodness, it really was.
Yeah, man.
And so I really felt like this track really stepped up and was perfect for it. Was Kali Raga.
Oh yeah, okay, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, that is a big track, a lot of really cool energy in it.
Yeah, that was fun. That was really fun. Mark Seelig, and he and I have been working together forever, and he's also a Groff, facilitator back in the day, a little after me. That's how we met, actually. He's very well educated, a couple PhDs and all this stuff, and he's involved in Mark. He's a great Bantry player, Bantry flute, and that's what mainly on this album, Kali Raga. But is built on the ragas. So, the Indian classical ragas, what he's trained in, the Bantry flute. So almost everything we've done together is raga based, but extending out from that. But that has that kind of foundation to it. and meditation, long form kinds of things. And but this thing had so much energy that we were just feeling the collie, you
Yeah.
know. Okay, so here it is, and so that became the album. That's a good example of how the album title comes right at the last. With
Yeah.
that, okay, this track has this got this a raga for sure, a raga bass, but it's got this energy that no raga would have. See, and not like that anymore, not in a tribal form, and so the we combined that stuff into the track name, and then that was obviously, well, this is what the album needs to be. So yeah.
Yeah. I love it. This has been such a treat for me, and I really appreciate, all the wisdom and experience that you're sharing. For me, like, I'm planning on certifying, with GTT, with craft
Okay.
transpersonal training this
Yeah.
year.
Great.
So
Great.
I feel very fortunate to be able to, like, tap in and connect with folks like yourself that, have so much experience in the space, and to be able to learn.
Well, thank you for asking. Yeah,
Yeah.
the invite's great, and it's just, this is part of my service, so, and I'm
Yeah.
just grateful to have the opportunities to with the technology, to be able to connect through somebody like yourself, and then to have it be available, so,
Yeah, it is great.
yeah.
Like you were saying, to be able to create with people, on other continents, and,
Mm-hmm.
where you're not able to connect with them physically in the studio
Yeah.
is such a gift.
And again, I want to come back to, I want to reinforce what I said earlier. Even if this was never out there, it's been a great conversation, man.
Ah, I appreciate that.
I mean, God, who gets to have this kind of fun? Who gets to do this? Yeah.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said, well, like, why did you start doing a podcast? And I said, well, I mean, in the beginning, it was to be inspired. Yeah, I just felt inspired. I wanted to do it. But
Mm-hmm.
these are the kind of conversations that light me up, that go, oh yeah, this is why it's great to have this, this platform and this format. And the feedback that I've gotten, especially when I've done something a little bit, off the beaten path, I really feel called to do this, but this isn't quite what people are used to. I get good feedback from it. Hey, I can feel that you're excited, and that's what I'm resonating with. Right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that feels good to me. It's like, okay, I can keep doing this, and it's great that
Yeah.
other people appreciate it, but just, I'm with you at the end of the day. Like, if I'm not having a good time, man,
Yeah.
why
Yeah.
show up and take the time to do it?
Exactly. Exactly. I mean,
As a way to bring the show to a close, since the name of the program is The Vital Point, which comes from a Dzogchen Buddhist teaching. And my vital point is usually that, regardless of the method that we're talking about, or the discipline, the important thing is that we have to practice. We have to put it into play. Is there something in your work, or professionally, or even just that came out of this conversation today, that you might want to share as your vital point?
Yeah. No, what comes first for me is presence, and that comes back to the breath. Always coming back to the breath first. Taking that breath, that invites presence, and from there, that's it. It's right here. Take a breath. So
Amazing.
yeah.
Well, we'll make sure to put all the links for your music on the
Okay,
show
great.
page. Is there
Great.
one place in particular you'd prefer someplace to go?
Well, my Bandcamp sites, that's where I get, that's the most supportive for me personally. But anywhere that people, whatever your favorite, whether it's streaming platform, whatever. But Bandcamp, Bandcamp's where they share more revenue with independent artists. So that's my favorite. So, but wherever.
Well, Byron, it's been a real pleasure. I appreciate your time and sharing your experience with us.
You bet, Jonathan. Thank you again for the invite, and deep journeys to everyone.
That's it for today's conversation on The Vital Point. Huge thanks to Byron Metcalf for joining us. You can find his music on Bandcamp. We linked that on the show page. Support him, check him out. He's just amazing musician. If this episode supported your path, leave us a review, consider sharing it with a friend, and if you're looking to go deeper, you can join me inside the Blue Magic Alchemy community on School, or go directly to bluemagicalchemy.com to explore my private coaching work. Until next time, keep growing, keep exploring, and above all, keep practicing, because that's the vital point.